This is a comprehensive look at self-love from Salt Family Services. In this video, we will be discussing how self-love is defined, its importance, and ways one can practice it. As you will learn, there is not a concrete definition of what self-love is, as there is not much research on the concept. We will be looking at this through an academic and psychological lens. We will be discussing varying definitions from different sources to have a more comprehensive view on self-love, as well as going over a proposed model for self-love and its theoretical background. If you are wanting something more succinct, short, or more approachable for younger audiences, especially for a classroom setting, you may find our All About Self-Love video to be more helpful. The same sources of information used to create this video were used to create our other videos that I just mentioned. It will just be presented a bit differently. If you are someone who is a student or just interested in psychology, you might find this video more interesting. In fact, I heavily recommend that you read What is Self-Love? Redefinition of a Controversial Construct by Ava Henschke and Peter Zeldemeyer. This is the research behind the proposed model. I will leave a link in the description below. Self-love is hard to define clinically and academically. You will probably find the term most often used in self-help books. You may also be familiar with those social media posts telling you to love yourself. But what does that actually mean, and how do we even do that? No hate to those posters, by the way. I am in fact one of them. Self-love is defined by the Merriam-Webster as an appreciation for one's own worth or virtue, as well as a proper regard for and attention to one's own happiness or well-being. This is a pretty good starting place. You might look at that and think, that sounds pretty similar to self-esteem. The American Psychological Association defines self-esteem as the degree to which the qualities and characteristics contained in one's self-concept are perceived to be positive. A reasonably high degree of self-esteem is considered an important ingredient of mental health, whereas low self-esteem and feelings of worthlessness are common depressive symptoms. You might even attempt to conflate the two, self-esteem and self-love, in order to find facts about self-love and ways to practice it with information found from peer-reviewed resources in order to present them online and to those within your own community to make education on mental health more accessible, while also being backed by actual credible resources and not just out of thin air, because there is so much misinformation about mental health because as it has become destigmatized, it has become romanticized, which is arguably equally as bad, and mental health has become such a popular online moral grift, and you are on a mission not to fall into that trap. Phew. Those are 4x4 breaths. You should try them sometime. They're pretty helpful. This was me last year as I was putting together a self-love party at a local business, trying to do what I had stated previously. Upon planning that event again for this year, I wanted to find more information to build on what I already started last year. In doing this, I found What is Self-Love? Redefinition of a Controversial Construct, as I mentioned earlier, through the American Psychological Association's website. They actually make the distinction between self-love and self-esteem. This will be a little bit more relevant when we talk about narcissism. In their paper, they propose a model based on interviews with psychologists to define self-love. They begin by discussing a lack of literature on the subject. They cite 4 different attempts at defining this concept. They describe their procedure as having semi-structured interviews with 13 psychotherapists. After conducting their interviews, they identified self-love as an attitude of kindness with 3 overarching themes with sub-themes of each. These are self-contact, self-acceptance, and self-care. Self-contact has sub-themes of encountering yourself and knowing yourself. This can be thought of as spending time with yourself. When encountering yourself, you are spending time within your inner world, listening to what your mind and body may be telling you. Knowing yourself is somewhat self-explanatory. The researchers explain that this may involve knowing your own strengths and weaknesses. Self-acceptance would involve accepting your own limitations, acknowledging that you have been aggressive or judgmental, and accepting all emotions. You are not perfect and you don't have to be. Self-care encompasses treating yourself and shaping your relationships. They leave out doing what makes you happy and taking care of yourself. out of the final model, but I feel that these are very important. Shaping your relationships in a way that is caring towards yourself is when you decide who is good for you and who is not good for you. When you decide who you will spend time with and when. The researchers do not explicitly point out a relationship between these themes, but I believe there is one, and that understanding it is crucial to breaking down self-love. One must have contact with themselves to be aware of their strengths and weaknesses. This makes it easier to accept yourself for who you are as a whole person. When you accept yourself, you're able to better take care of yourself based upon your strengths and heal your weaknesses. This also makes you capable of deciding who you want to spend your time with. They state their main theoretical background as realism and essentialism. There is also an overarching theme of humanistic therapeutic approaches and concepts such as self-actualization mentioned throughout the paper. The humanistic approach is client-centered, and at its core is a belief in people's inherent goodness and everyone's individual journey to their full potential. It is related to psychologists Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, and may also involve knowing your body and self-acceptance. They also discuss the controversial history of self-love as it is commonly associated with narcissism. However, they argue that this is not the same because narcissism is actually a response to a lack of self-love. I disagree with this argument as it's a bit more nuanced than that, but that's a video for a different time. But I do agree that self-love is not narcissistic or self-centered. Narcissistic traits feature a lack of respect for others as well as a very inflated sense of self and entitlement to special treatment, especially believing that you are more deserving than most. This is also where the differentiation of self-love and self-esteem comes in, as they argue that self-esteem involves an evaluation of yourself. Also, when we look at the acceptance aspect of the model, there is acceptance of one's limitations as well as an acceptance that one admits to being aggressive and judgmental. Love for oneself is honest, not inflated or grandiose. There is an aspect of accountability. This leads to my main argument for self-love not being the same as narcissism. Often, self-love can be associated with negative characteristics, such as narcissistic qualities. When I'm using the term narcissistic, I am not referring to narcissistic personality disorder. It can be associated with an inflated ego, sense of self, or selfishness. It's important to remember that self-love is a positive trait and is inherently healthy. If someone is expressing love for themselves in an unhealthy, selfish, or harmful way, that's not actually self-love. If you were to observe a neglectful parent that did not correct misbehavior or unsafe behavior from their child, would you consider that to be love? When somebody engages in harmful behavior either towards themselves or others under the guise of self-love, that's not actually authentic self-love. Unfortunately, this negative connotation stigmatizes acts of self-care and self-esteem. It's important that we make the distinction between self-love and selfishness so that people can engage in healthy behavior for themselves without feeling shame. The reason we want to dismantle this incorrect stigma is because there are so many positive benefits to engaging with and practicing self-loving behavior. Let's break down the model and look at not only the benefits of each part of the model, but potential ways that you can practice and exercise each. We already discussed the relationship between the three themes of this model. That will be significant in understanding the benefits because, as I explained, one part supports another. When you know yourself, you know what you are accepting, what you accept you can care for. Self-contact is an important first step. After all, can you really love someone that you don't know? Surely you want to know the person you're spending all your time with. And you must obviously know yourself. You must on a basic level. How often are you mindful about this though? How often do you actually spend quality time with yourself? And is this time alone just with you? Do you talk to yourself out loud or in your mind? If you're not even spending time with yourself, do you even know what you'd like to do? What are your hobbies? Have you abandoned your hobbies that you do with yourself? You do not have to spend all of your free time alone, but you should have some activities you like to do just with yourself, or at least know what they are. When you know yourself and spend time being mindful, you can better take care of your needs. We will have a video titled A Date with Yourself that has some first date questions to ask and answer for yourself. Going back to hobbies or finding a hobby that you enjoy doing alone is also helpful. Journaling, practicing mindfulness, and considering your values are all great ways to get contact with yourself. Accepting yourself is a great way to dismantle shame, insecurity, and build confidence and self-esteem. This also allows you to better advocate for yourself when necessary. Do you accept yourself? It's important to remember that acceptance does not equate to approval. You can accept parts of you that you may want to change. However, if you hide behind embarrassment and shame, it's much harder to care for yourself and make these changes. I want to share a personal story. Flossing for me was always hard because I wouldn't do it for a while, because I just was not taking care of myself like I should have been. And then, when I would go to floss again, my gums would bleed. Seeing this in the mirror would really upset me. I know that this may sound dramatic to some, but maybe some of you can relate to this. But I would feel such a deep sense of shame that I couldn't even floss. I felt gross, lazy, and disappointed in myself. I accepted that I had failed to take care of myself in the past, but that I deserved better and I would make a change. I accepted the feelings and allowed them to flow through me. These are feelings I had, but they were not my identity. When I allowed myself to feel this, I had clarity. I accepted a limitation I had. I could just not floss in the mirror. I began to floss away from the mirror every other night, and then every night, and now morning and night. My gums no longer bleed like they used to do. You can practice self-acceptance through mindfulness, identifying your feelings as something you hold but not who you are, practicing gratitude, challenging cognitive distortions, and positive affirmations. We will actually be putting out a video soon on positive affirmations, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. Something you should know about positive affirmations is that they must be realistic and personal to you. Broad and unrealistic phrases like, "I'm amazing," can actually backfire. For me, a positive affirmation might be, "I'm proud of myself for flossing my teeth today." You should not just accept your limitations, but also your strengths. Balance is important to a cohesive and wholesome relationship with yourself. Self-care. Everyone loves self-care. Treating myself? Well, don't mind if I do. After all, I'm known to love a little sweet treat. Self-care has obvious benefits for your health and well-being. Taking care of yourself when suffering could mean many things, such as being there for yourself during emotional distress or illness. Another benefit is that it allows you to have healthy relationships. Have you heard the phrase, "To love others, you must love yourself"? I really don't like this saying. I think it puts an unnecessary stress on those who already may be struggling with themselves. I think it implies that people who struggle with self-love are not deserving of love in relationships. I will say, to care for others, you absolutely have to care for yourself. You will not have the energy to properly care for those you love if you are not meeting your needs first. If you are saying to yourself right now, "But I'm a people pleaser," pause. I am sure there is somebody out there who is in fact not pleased with you at the moment, and that's okay. But this is to say that there is no way for you to constantly put your needs aside for others or one specific person all the time. You will burn out and feel resentment. This resentment will cloud your judgment. This is where the building relationships aspect of this theme comes in. To practice this, you must manage your time, your effort, and set boundaries. You can achieve this easier by understanding what your values are. Challenging cognitive distortions is another great tool. There are easy, fun ways to practice self-care, such as doing things that bring you joy. A bubble bath, baking a sweet treat and eating it, watching a show, or drinking some hot cocoa. I will tell you that self-care is not always easy. You must make the time to care for yourself. You will have to put in the effort. It is not always fun. Doing your homework, brushing your teeth, getting your blood work done, doing the dishes, cleaning up because yes, you deserve to live in a clean environment. If you are in therapy, practicing your coping mechanisms and doing your therapeutic homework might apply. These are not always fun and aesthetic, but necessary to your well-being. Also, spending time with those you love and have healthy relationships with. Making the time to visit people can be daunting, but we need to do it. We are social creatures. Also, if you are somebody who is interested in psychology, I really heavily recommend that you go read that paper. It's actually very interesting. I think that there are free versions. I know that on the American Psychological Association's website, you had to pay a $19 fee for it, but if you're currently a college student or a teacher, I think that you can access it for free with your institution's email. Thank you for watching this video. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving us a like and subscribing. Happy Valentine's Day from Salt Family Services.